This conference will now be recorded.
Can you hear the video, audio and video clearly?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Sir, video voice is low, sir.
Pardon?
Video voice is low, sir. Not audible properly.
కొద్దిగా వీడియో తక్కువ ఉంది. You put your voice little volume కొద్దిగా పెంచుకోండి.
So polymerase chain reaction DNA now and what is polymerase? So polymerase is used in this technique to multiply the DNA. The DNA polymerase usually we use is thermostable DNA polymerase. We use soft DNA polymerase. Now, DNA polymerase that DNA during interphase of the takes place in now chain reaction. In PCR technique, the product of a reaction, so once the reaction is over, the product is formed. The product is used again to amplify the same reaction. So again, the product is amplified. So this is the rapid product. Nobel Prize for this, but he received the Nobel Prize in chemistry. Then he got this idea during a long drive. DNA polymerase gets under optimal temperature.
Sir, video is too low, sir. Not audible.
Just ఇయర్ఫోన్స్ పెట్టుకుంటారా సో దట్ యూ కెన్ హియర్
సార్ ఇయర్ ఫోన్స్ ఫుల్ వాల్యూమ్ లో ఉన్నాయి సార్.
ఇయర్ ఫోన్స్ పెట్టుకునే ఉన్నాం సార్.
ఫుల్ వాల్యూమ్ లోనే ఉన్నాయి సార్.
The video volume is little bit low, otherwise I need to explain this.
Polymerase chain reaction. So the different temperature provided by the thermal cycle was thermal cycle what we provide the property. top DNA polymer is a DNA polymer derived from the bacteria called as thermus hepaticus. So this bacteria, thermus hepaticus, it lives in the phosphate, and the top DNA polymer optimum temperature shows the optimum temperature is 72 degrees centigrade. So that is 72 degrees centigrade shows the optimum activity. So that this is the thermostable, the mean stable DNA polymer. So for the PCR technique, we need thermostable DNA polymer. So and this top DNA polymer can withstand temperature of 96 degrees centigrade. It would undergo denaturation. So because it is thermostable, top DNA polymer would be stable. Now, thermal cycling. In this sense, a PCR machine controls the temperature needed to amplify DNA. So again, I'm repeating, the only job we do, or only job the PCR machine does amplification of DNA content, the sorted DNA. That's the only job the PCR machine does. But a typical polymerase chain reaction goes through three stages under three steps. They are denaturation, annealing, and extension. Denaturation is usually carried out at 195 degrees centigrade, and annealing or the manufacturing of the primer to generate DNA is carried out at 50 degrees centigrade, and finally the extension of the DNA is carried out at 72 degrees centigrade. That's the cycle of PCR reaction. It goes through different temperatures. So these different temperatures are provided by this PCR machine. So thermal cycle of the temperature. So let us study each one by one. The first step in the polymerase chain reaction is separation and the denaturation. So we know that DNA is a right double helix in a double stranded chain. So first you have to separate these two strands into single stranded DNA. So you have to separate double helix into single stranded DNA. This is denaturation. This part is important basic of DNA. So the separation of double stranded DNA into single stranded DNA is carried out at 95 degrees centigrade or 15 seconds to 2 minutes. Again, separation denaturation. This double stranded DNA separated into single stranded DNA, and it is kept at 95 degrees centigrade for 15 seconds to 2 minutes. The second step is putting primer or attachment of this primer to the template DNA. These primers are nothing but there's the oligonucleotide, oligonucleotide contains the DNA, oligonucleotide. So whose sequence is synthetically which is complementary to the nucleic acid, which is the target DNA or DNA of interest of the template DNA. So this particular step or this particular step is called priming. So here the primers are unleashed or it is hybridized at 50 degrees centigrade. So for about 0.5 denaturation again during the temperature. Here again the temperature
సార్ హలో సార్ ఏం వినపట్లేదు సార్. అసలు ఏం వినపట్లేదు, ఏబిసిడీలు చెప్తున్నట్టుంది సార్.
Sir, your voice is not audible, sir.
Yes, sir. What Shobhan is telling is right, sir.
అంతే. సో దానికి ఇక్కడ వరకు ఇది ఇది క్యాన్సిల్ చేసి ఇది వీడియో కట్ చేసి పీపీటీస్ పెట్టుకుందాం.
This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so now can you hear me? I hope all of you can hear me.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay, so I will explain myself.
Yes, sir.
Okay, here we go. So actually, ఈ స్లైడ్ కనబడట్లేదు, ఈ పవర్ పాయింట్ కదా స్లైడ్ అటు ఇటు బ్యాక్ ఫోర్త్. So this polymerase chain reaction, remember mainly the main job what we do, the main job of polymerase chain reaction is the amplification or the multiplication of DNA. That is the only job we do in the polymerase chain reaction or PCR technique. You got it? So only amplification as the multiplication of DNA, that to DNA, we don't do RNA. Okay, so the PCR technique mainly involves 3 steps. Remember this, the PCR technique mainly involves three steps. They are denaturation, annealing and extension. So denaturation we carry out at 95 degrees centigrade, okay? That is high temperature. And annealing are the hybridization of the primer. So primers are attached to the template DNA, so that is called as annealing. So this annealing process is carried out at 50 degrees centigrade. And then the synthesis of the new strands of DNA, that is extension of DNA. So extension of DNA is carried out at 72 degree centigrade. So usually, so because the denaturation is carried out at 95 degrees centigrade, and so we need a thermostable DNA polymerase. So before they were using normal DNA polymerases, and after every cycle they need to add freshly the DNA polymerase. So that was a big problem. So then we have thermostable. So do we have thermostable DNA polymerase? Yes, we have thermostable DNA polymerase. That is the top DNA polymerase. So this top DNA polymerase, which being thermostable, so that DNA also solved the problem. So and because denaturation is carried out at 95 degrees centigrade, we have to have a DNA polymerase which can withstand this 95 degrees centigrade. So all this problem is solved by a thermostable DNA polymerase. That's why we use top DNA polymerase. Okay. So because the process of polymerase chain reaction goes through different temperatures, isn't it? So the different temperature conditions are provided by the thermocycler, or what the PCR machine we use. So now, what is the first step in the PCR technique is the separation. We know that DNA exists as double-stranded, isn't it? So first we have to separate the double-stranded DNA into single-strand DNA. So this separation of double-stranded DNA into single-stranded DNA is called as denaturation, or the separation, or simply it is called as melting of DNA. So the DNA strands are separated or melted by heating at 95 degrees centigrade for about 15 seconds to 2 minutes. So at 95 degrees centigrade, the double-stranded DNA are separated into single-stranded DNA. So here you can make out in this diagram. So that is the denaturation step. So then next step is the attachment of the primers to the template DNA, isn't it? So template DNA is the one which is replicated, isn't it? So here it is called as priming or annealing. So the primers are annealed or hybridized or attached by cooling to 50 degrees centigrade, isn't it? So during the process of denaturation, the temperature was raised to 95 degrees centigrade. Now in the second step, during the annealing step, so we have to reduce the temperature from 95 degrees centigrade to 50 degrees centigrade. So the temperature is cooled from 95 degrees centigrade to 50 degrees centigrade, and it is carried out for about 0.5 to 2 minutes. Okay. So during the priming or the annealing process, the primers hybridizer, it gets attached to the complementary single-stranded DNA. You can make out here. So here the attachment of the primers to the single-stranded DNA. Because this, already the transcription process, replication process, these primers provides 3' hydroxyl group, so that the DNA polymerase can synthesize the new strands of DNA. So the last step of PCR technique is the extension. So the extension or the synthesis of the new strands of DNA is catalyzed by the enzyme, DNA polymerase. So the new DNA strands are synthesized by the top DNA polymerase, because top DNA polymerase being in thermostable, so we use this top DNA polymerase. Okay. So now the enzyme is not denatured at 72 degrees centigrade. So 72 degrees centigrade is the optimum temperature for the DNA top polymerase, and it can withstand temperatures more than 95 degrees centigrade. So it is not denatured. Enzyme is not denatured. So the same enzyme can be repeatedly used during the repetition of the repeating cycles of the PCR technique. Okay. So the enzyme is not denatured at 72 degrees centigrade for 30 seconds. And what are the substrate we need for the synthesis of DNA is the deoxy nucleoside triphosphate. So we have to have all the 4 deoxy nucleoside triphosphates of adenine, guanine, cytosine, and thymine. Because this is synthesis of DNA, you need thymine, not the uracil. Now the both strands of DNA are now duplicated, isn't it? So you can make out here, this is the step of elongation. So the step one is what? Step one is, what is step one? So step one is the denaturation, step two is the annealing, and step three is the extension. So it represents, or it constitutes one cycle of the PCR. The steps of 1, 2, 3 are repeated. In each cycle, the DNA strands are doubled, isn't it? So by about 20 cycles, it provides 1 million times of amplification. That means, so if you have your gene of interest, or your target DNA, or the DNA of your interest is, by the end of 20 cycle, is multiplied into millions of, you get the millions of copies of your DNA of interest or the target DNA. So the only job we do in the polymerase chain reaction is the amplification of the DNA. So multiplication of DNA, that is the only thing we do in the polymerase chain reaction. So these cycles are generally repeated by automated instrument called as a 10 cycler. So what the PCR machine we use, in the beginning I have shown the PCR machines. So you can make out, this is actually the Bio-Rad PCR machines here have shown here. This is an PCR machine. This is an RT PCR machine. Okay, real time or the reverse transcriptase PCR machines. So these are the PCR machines from the Bio-Rad company. Just I have shown, this is how these PCR machines looks. And so now this denaturation and denaturation of DNA, wherein we convert the double-stranded DNA into single-stranded DNA, and it is carried out at 95 degrees centigrade. And then annealing, in the second step we do the annealing, so where the primers are attached or annealed or hybridized to their complementary single-stranded DNA, so that in the next step, that is in extension, by using DNA top DNA polymerase, the DNAs are extended, isn't it? The new strands of DNA are synthesized. So this completes one cycle of PCR. So in PCR, the cycles are repeated. Usually, this says that the PCR machines are programmed in such a way that it is programmed for 25 to 30 cycles, because that much DNA is sufficient. By the time of 25 to 30 cycles, we get millions of copies of our DNA interest as the target DNA. Now let us see an simple animation of PCR technique. So here this is our DNA of interest, and what are the things we need to carry out the PCR technique? We need the substrate. What are the substrates? We need all the 4 types of deoxy nucleoside triphosphate. We have to have primers, because here we have 2 types of primers. One is running in the 5' 3' direction, and other primers are running in the 3' 5' direction, because the DNA, double-stranded DNA, you know, they are anti-parallel, isn't it? One strand is running in 3' to 5' direction, the other strand is running in the 5' to 3' direction. So we need primers for the both ends. That's why we have primers, 5' 3' primers, and we have the 3' 5' in primers. So we have primers for the both ends. And we need a thermostable DNA polymerase. So we are using top DNA polymerase, which is thermostable. And then in the first step of PCR reaction, denaturation takes place, where the double-stranded DNA is separated into single-stranded DNA. And then the second step is the annealing, so where the primers are attached to their complementary single-stranded DNA. And the third step is the extension, so where with the help of top DNA polymerase, we are synthesizing new strands of DNA. And so when the cycles are repeated, so the DNA is multiplied. Remember, the DNA is multiplied exponentially. That point is very important. So that's why by the end of 20 cycles, you will be having the millions of copy of DNA of your interest as the target DNA. So see, by the end of 2 cycles, you are having 4 copies of DNA. By the end of 8 cycles, 3 cycles, you are having 8 copies of DNA. And see here again, for 4 cycles, you are having 32 strands of DNA. By the end of 5 cycle, you are having 64 strands of DNA. By the end of 6 cycles, you have 128 strands of DNA. And by the end of just 7 cycles, you have 256 strands of DNA of your interest at the target DNA. So, but they say that by the end of 25 cycles or 30 cycles, you will be having millions of copies of your DNA of interest at the target DNA. So that is the advantage of this PCR technique. So now, what are the advantages of this polymerase chain reaction over the conventional or the traditional cloning technique? So where you use plasmids or the cosmids to multiply the DNA, isn't it? So the major advantage of PCR over biologic cloning as a mechanism for amplifying a specific DNA sequence. See here, even in the cloning technique in the recombinant DNA technology, or in case of our PCR technique, the only job is what we do is we are amplifying or we are multiplying the DNA of our interest. That is the only job we do. But when compared to the cloning technique, to the PCR technique, the PCR technique is very sensitive and it is very speed. Now here, what do you mean by sensitivity? Sensitivity means here, even if you have a very small amount of DNA, say for example, DNA present in a single hair follicle, or DNA present in a tiny spot of blood, or the DNA present in the semen sample is sufficient. So that by using the PCR technique, the PCR technique is easy, it is very speed, and it is very sensitive. So you can multiply DNA. So just by the end of 20 cycles, you will be having the millions copies of that DNA, so that further you can study it. So that is the advantage of this polymerase chain reaction over the our traditional cloning techniques. Either in cloning technique or in the PCR, what you are going to do, you are just multiplying or you are amplifying the DNA of your interest or the target DNA. So the DNA sequences is present in only trace amounts can be amplified to become the predominant sequence. So you will be having a sufficient amount of DNA after amplification by PCR technique, so that these can be later studied. So isolating and amplifying a specific DNA sequence by PCR technique, it is very faster. The procedure is made very easy. Technically, it is very easy, and so it is technically less difficult, and it is very faster, and it is very sensitive when compared to the our traditional cloning methods used in recombinant DNA technology. Already, I know you know already this recombinant DNA technology, isn't it? Where you are also there also you are going to amplify or you are going to multiply the DNA of your interest by inserting the your DNA of your target DNA into either the plasmids or the cosmids vectors, isn't it? So there, when the bacteria multiplies, so along with that, when the plasmid multiplies, so you are multiplying your DNA of an interest, but it is laborious procedure and it is very time-consuming procedure. All is made very easy, faster, and very sensitive in case of PCR technique. Now, what are the applications of this polymerase chain reaction, the PCR technique? PCR has become a very common tool for a large number of applications. Remember, what is the job we do in the PCR technique is that just we multiply the DNA of our interest or the target DNA. That is the only thing we do by using the PCR technique. So comparison of a normal gene with the, let us study one by one the applications. So let us compare a normal gene with the mutant gene, isn't it? So mutant gene is a disease gene. It's an altered normal gene. So PCR allows the synthesis of mutant DNA in sufficient quantity. I already told you. So the only job what we do is where we multiply the DNA, isn't it? So if you want to compare the mutant DNA with the normal mutant gene with a normal gene, you have to have a sufficient quantity of the mutant gene. So you multiply this mutant gene by using the PCR technique. So by using PCR technique, you will be having millions of copies of mutant gene, and later you compare it to the normal gene. So that is made possible by using this PCR technique. So sequence product without laborious cloning the altered DNA. So it is a very laborious and time-consuming method if you use the cloning method. It is what we use in case of recombinant DNA technology. So next, the detection of low abundance of nucleic acid sequences. So viruses, here, suppose if a person is infected with virus, isn't it? So in the initial stages of infection, the number of virus present in the body, or the number of cells infected by the virus, is very less number. So it is very difficult to diagnose the infection in the early stages of viral infection. So here, viruses that have a long latency period, such as human immunodeficiency virus, are difficult to detect at the early stages of infection using conventional methods. Here the thing is, if a person is infected with HIV, so this virus has a long latency period. That is what a long latency period is. It has got a long dormant period. That is, the virus remains inactive in the body for a long time. So during such period, so during latency period, the number of viruses or the number of cells infected by the virus is very less. So by our conventional methods, it may give false negative. So we may miss the diagnosis. So why the problem is because you're having a less number of cells which are infected with the HIV virus, or the now the recent at present coronavirus, isn't it? So then so this problem is solved by using the PCR technique. That is, in the PCR technique, what we do is, the viral, even though the number of virus present in the body or the number of cells affected by the virus is less, even if you have DNA from a single cell, from a single virus, can be multiplied into millions of copies, and then later it can be detected very easily. So this PCR technique, and it is offers a rapid, so the technique is very fast and is very sensitive, isn't it? So even if you have a single piece of DNA, that is sufficient, you can multiply, and you can multiply it into millions of copies, and later it is very easy to detect. That means PCR helps in the early or the initial stages of infection of the diseases like HIV virus or now the recent coronavirus, isn't it? So we have a type of PCR technique called as real-time PCR technique, wherein not only you can detect the viral DNA, but also we can quantitate the viral DNA, isn't it? So viral, in the sense, so here, so whether the person is infected or not, he is positive for the infection, positive for the HIV or not, he is positive or negative for the coronavirus infection. So that is just qualitative. So not only not only detecting the presence and absence of the virus, here by using this real-time PCR, it is possible to even to quantitate the DNA. So by quantitating the DNA, we can tell the viral load. So by determining the viral load, we can say further, we can say that the person is moderately infected, he's mildly infected, moderately infected, and severely infected. So based on the severity of the infection, the treatment modalities or the treatment strategy differs. So that is the advantage of using the real-time PCR. And say, for example, let us take in reverse transcriptase PCR or the RT-PCR. So this slide specifically I kept for our recent coronavirus. See, either HIV virus or the coronavirus, they are the RNA viruses. That means the genome is RNA, not DNA. But in the PCR technique, what we are going to do, we amplify only the DNA, not the RNA. So then how to detect this RNA viruses like coronavirus or the HIV virus? So we have an enzyme called as reverse transcriptase. So naturally in the body, what happens? Usually DNA is transcribed into RNA, isn't it? So, but in PCR, we detect DNA, we amplify DNA, but not the RNA. What we do is, you do the reverse transcription. So reversely, you transcribe RNA into DNA. So by reverse transcription, by using reverse transcriptase, we have enzyme reverse transcriptase. So you reversely, you transcribe RNA into DNA. Now the DNA synthesis is called as complementary DNA, the cDNA. So now you have cDNA. So this cDNA you multiply by using the PCR technique. You have millions of copies of this complementary DNA, and then the Chinese people, that is this coronavirus virus, they say it's born in Wuhan of China. The same Chinese, what they have done, they have sequenced the genome of the coronavirus. That means we know the nucleotide sequence of the coronavirus genome. So because we know the nucleotide sequence of the coronavirus genome, it is possible to produce the probes for the coronavirus. That is, probes are they are the oligonucleotide, short oligonucleotide sequences. So about 15 to 30 nucleotides. So those sequences are complementary to the sequences of the coronavirus RNA, isn't it? So because we know the nucleotide sequence of the genome of the coronavirus, it is possible to synthesize the probes for the coronavirus. You got it? So by using the coronavirus probes, so by using the PCR technique, you have multiplied the complementary DNA, which is whose sequence is complementary to RNA, isn't it? So now because we know the sequence of coronavirus genome, and so it is possible to synthesize artificially these probes. So using the fluorescent probes, so if the person is infected with coronavirus, and after multiplying by PCR technique, so if the probe is added, so then the probe goes and binds to the complementary DNA, because this probe is complementary to a complementary DNA. So then it is fluorescent, later it is detected. Then we say the person is positive or negative. And now we have a technique, a PCR techniques, where not only you can detect the presence or absence of this viral DNA or RNA, so it is possible to quantitate also. So by quantitating, we can tell whether the person is mildly or moderately or severely infected, based on which the treatment is given to the patient. And how the sample is taken for the coronavirus infection, you know you know where the virus is mainly concentrated. So coronavirus is mainly highly concentrated in the nasopharynx or the oropharynx. Okay. So by using a special swab, isn't it? So either nasopharynx or oropharynx is scraped. Usually nasopharynx is preferred over the oropharynx, where the virus concentration is high, and then the virus is lysed, so its genome is released, and then it is multiplied by using this PCR technique, and it is detected by using probes, and then we can say whether the person is infected or not, and also we can quantitate and we can say whether the person is mildly infected or moderately infected or severely infected. Now, the other application is a forensic analysis of DNA samples. So, application of PCR technique in forensic field. Say, for example, DNA fingerprinting by means of PCR has revolutionized the analysis of evidence from the crime scenes. So, see here, DNA isolated from a single human hair. So, even a single human hair of the victim is sufficient, and even a tiny spot of blood at the of the victim is sufficient, or a sample of the semen is sufficient so that is during the rape cases. We need to find out who are the we have to find out the victims. So that small amount of semen sample is also sufficient to determine whether the sample comes from a specific individual. Thing is, because with the help of PCR technique, even the small amount, the DNA what is available from a single human hair, or the DNA that is available from a tiny spot of blood or sample of semen is sufficient. By using PCR technique, you can multiply into millions of copies. Later, it can be studied so that we can detect the real victim. This is how the problem is solved in the forensic field. As here, the DNA markers analyzed for such fingerprinting are most commonly short tandem repeat polymorphism. So you know, in our genome, we have what are called as this short tandem repeats. They are repeated. They are repeated and they are scatteredly present in our genome. And this presence of this short tandem repeats it is unique to each person. So it is different from one person to another person. So this forms one type of DNA fingerprinting. So later, once you multiply, when you amplify the DNA by using the PCR technique, later it is by using the restriction analysis. So you compare the sample with the victims, and with who with whom victim it matches exactly, we can tell that who is the real victim. And even this PCR technique also useful in solving the parental problem. They uses the same technique. Next, prenatal diagnosis and carrier detection. PCR technique also finds its application during prenatal diagnosis of some of the hereditary diseases. And here we can tell who is having the disease or who is carrier for the disease. Let me take an example: cystic fibrosis. So here cystic fibrosis is an autosomal recessive genetic disease. So here it is an autosomal means that means sex chromosomes are not involved. So autosomes are involved, and it is a recessive genetic disease. So recessive genetic disease, recessive means both genes should be affected, isn't it? And then only the disease can be expressed. So genetic disease, so resulting from mutation in the gene for the cystic fibrosis transmembrane conductance regulator protein. So in cystic fibrosis, there is a mutation in the gene which codes for the protein called as cystic fibrosis transmembrane conductance regulator protein. It is called as CFTR protein. So here, what is the mutation that has taken place in this gene? The most common mutation is a 3 base deletion. So what is the type of mutation here is a deletion. Here, the 3 bases are knocked out. It is deleted from the gene. You know, 3 specific nucleotide sequence forms a genetic code, isn't it? It could be for any amino acid. So in this case, so when the 3 bases are deleted, that results in the loss of a phenylalanine residue. So that deletion of these 3 nucleotide bases results in the which codes for the phenylalanine. So this results in the loss of phenylalanine amino acid residue from this mutated CFTR protein. So now this mutated CFTR protein, the gene, the length of the CFTR gene is less when compared to the normal length of the CFTR gene by 3 base, isn't it? So because 3 bases are deleted in the mutated gene when compared to the normal gene. So naturally the length of the mutated gene is little bit less when compared to the normal gene. So this property will exploit. So first but we have to have a multiple copies. We have to have a sufficient amount of DNA so that we can compare later in by doing the electrophoresis. So by using the PCR technique, so we amplify the DNA, and later by doing the electrophoresis, so we will compare with the normal gene and we'll take who are carriers and who are homozygous. So here in the diagram you can make out, here we have a normal CFTR gene, and here we have mutant CFTR gene whose length is little bit less by 3 base when compared to the normal CFTR gene because of the mutation. And when you do so, you multiply this mutant CFTR gene by using the PCR technique. The job of the PCR technique is only multiplication. So because we have to have sufficient quantity of DNA. For that, you multiply by using PCR technique. Then you do the electrophoresis. So you do the electrophoresis for the normal gene and a heterozygous mutant, and also you do the when electrophoresis is done. So this is the band formed from the normal gene, band of a normal gene. So if the person is heterozygous, because heterozygous means one gene is normal and the other gene is mutated. So the normal gene forms a band here, which is similar to the normal gene band, and it forms a mutant gene band, which has moved far away, little bit farther away from the this normal gene band, because its length is little bit less, isn't it, when compared to the normal gene? It is less by 3 nucleotide base. So it shows a normal band as well as this mutated band. That means one normal gene, one mutated gene. That means these persons are carriers for the cystic fibrosis. Whereas if you find only one band which has moved farther away from the normal band, that means only one band is formed. That is because the both genes are mutated here, isn't it? That means here he is homozygous, and it's an autosomal recessive, means the both genes should be affected so that then only disease can be expressed. So here this person is homozygous, therefore he expresses the disease, whereas this heterozygous, they are the carriers. So this PCR technique, it also helps in the prenatal diagnosis, and it also helps in the carrier detection of the cystic fibrosis, so that the parents can think if they are carriers, so they can think whether they can have the baby or not. Next, the diagnosis of bacterial and viral diseases. As already I have told you, PCR also plays an important role in the diagnosis. So in the detection, diagnosis of bacterial diseases, different types of bacterial diseases and the different types of viral diseases. Let me take an example here, tuberculosis or the TB. So in the early stages or in the early phases of tuberculosis, you know, they screen the sputum for this bacilli, isn't it? Tubercle bacilli. So the sputum may contain only very few tubercle bacilli. So in the initial phases of the TB infection, the sputum may contain very little amount of this tubercle bacilli. So that when you do the acid fasting staining, it may give false negative. So just because the usual acid fast staining test is less sensitive, it missed the diagnosis because still the number of bacteria present in the sputum is very less. But it doesn't rule out the infection. Isn't the person is infected because he is in the initial stage, because due to the presence of the very few number of tubercle bacillus bacteria in the sputum. So because this acid fast staining procedure is less sensitive, so it gave false negative, but you cannot rule out the infection. But by using the PCR technique, even one bacilli present in the specimen, you can multiply you can get in by doing amplification in the PCR. You can have billions of copies which can be later detected. So PCR is more sensitive, isn't it? So later you can the specific nucleotide sequence of the bacilli are amplified by the PCR technique, and later you can detect by using the blotting technique. So what is this Southern blotting stands for? Southern blotting stands for, you are not?
DNA.
Yes, very good. Southern blotting is for the DNA, and northern is for the RNA, and western is for the protein detection, isn't it? So that means even in the, so this PCR technique helps in the very early infection stage. Then medico-legal cases. So PCR also helps in solving many medico-legal cases. So PCR allows the DNA in a single cell or in a hair follicle to be analyzed. So because at the incident sites, when is the victims, maybe one single hair may be available, or maybe very tiny spot of blood may be available, or very little amount of semen may be available. So by using that such a small tiny amount of sample, or even just with the single hair follicle, the DNA present in such a single cell as in a hair follicle, by using PCR technique, you can multiply, isn't it? You can amplify the DNA into millions of copies. Now you have a sufficient amount. Later, by using this restriction analysis, we can solve the problem. You know, you heard about the restriction fragment length polymerism. There is one technique is there. So the restriction analysis of DNA from the hair follicle from the crime scene is studied after PCR amplification. So you the DNA that is present in a single cell or in a hair follicle, you amplify by using the PCR technique. Now you have sufficient amount of DNA. Later, do the restriction analysis, and the problem, medical legal cases can be solved. Here, this pattern in the then later, the restriction analysis pattern is compared with the restriction analysis of the DNA samples obtained from the various suspects. So overall, you are suspected for their DNA is also amplified, and restriction analysis carried out, and what the DNA that is obtained at the crime spot is also amplified with the help of PCR technique, and later it is also restriction analysis done, and then they are compared with the suspects. So the culprit sample will perfectly match with that of the PCR amplified sample, and finally the culprit, the real culprit is detected. Then diagnosis of genetic disorder, I already told you. So the PCR technique has been widely used to amplify the gene segment that contain known mutations for diagnosis of inherited diseases. such as sickle cell anemia, thalassemia, cystic fibrosis. So I have explained this in detail by taking cystic fibrosis as an example. Then already I have told you this, so it also helps in the prenatal diagnosis of the neonatal disease. So prenatal is during the pregnancy period. Okay. Antenatal is after the pregnancy, that is when the baby is delivered. So prenatal, so that by detecting whether the father is a carrier or mother is a carrier, both are carriers, they can so by doing early detection, so that the parents can think about of having a baby. So and then cancer detection. So PCR also plays an finds its application in cancer detection. Say for example, PCR is widely used to monitor. So, once the diagnosis is done and when the treatment is initiated, we have to monitor the case whether the treatment is working or not, isn't it? Whether the case is the patient is improving or he is deteriorating. So that is called as monitoring, isn't it? So this PCR is widely used to monitor the residual abnormal cells present in treated patients. So when in a diagnosed cancer patient, when the patient is treated either with the radiotherapy or the cancer therapy, we don't know how far the cancer is spread. Even by using surgery, even if you remove the tumor or even you kill the cells by radiation therapy, we don't know how far it is spread. Even if the cells are completely not removed, again after some time, again it forms the tumor. Again you get back the cancer. So that is called as to monitor residual abnormal cells present in the treated patient. That is what this means. Similarly, identification of mutations in oncosuppressor genes such as P53 or retinoblastoma gene can help to identify individuals at the high risk of cancer. We have three types of, already from cancer chapter, we have three types of genes, isn't it? We have proto-oncogenes, we have oncogenes, and we have oncosuppressor genes. Proto-oncogenes they're physiologically needed genes. They are healthy genes, and their products are healthy. Sorry, scientist. So this proto-oncogenes, they're the normal genes present in our genome. Their product is required. They doesn't cause any cancer, it doesn't cause any harm. Because of the mutation in the proto-oncogenes, when the proto-oncogenes are converted into oncogene, so now the product of this oncogene causes the cancer. So now proto-oncogenes, because of the different type of mutation, what may be the cause for the mutation? So when the proto-oncogenes, which are the normal genes, because of the mutation, when they are transformed into an oncogene, the product of the oncogene causes a cancer. Now we have another set of genes in our genome. They are called as oncosuppressor genes. So the job of this oncosuppressor gene product is to suppress the expression of the oncogenes. So by suppressing the expression of the oncogenes, you are suppressing the expression of the oncogene, means the cancer is prevented, isn't it? So here we have such oncosuppressor genes also in our genome. For example, P53. So this P53 oncosuppression is very widely studied, and its role is there in almost all types of cancers in the body. So if there is any mutation in the excuse me, if there is any mutation in the P53 oncosuppressor gene or the retinoblastoma gene, what happens? Because of this mutation, the oncosuppressor gene may not work. Its product may not suppress the oncogenes. Then what happens? Because nobody is there to check the activity of the oncogene, nobody is there to suppress the expression of the oncogene. So oncogene will be expressed, its products will cause the cancer in the body. So here, by using the PCR technique, we can identify the individuals before the cancer. See, cancer immediately the person may not. It takes its own time. It may take 20 years, 15 years. After that, the person may get the cancer. So here, before only, you screen the gene for any mutations. You screen the oncosuppressor genes for any mutation. If the person is having any mutations in the oncosuppressor gene before he gets the cancer, so that is possible. For that, you have the sufficient quantity of the gene. So by using the PCR technique, you multiply the oncosuppressor gene, amplify the oncosuppressor gene, you have millions of copies. Later you screen, you do the sequence analysis, you see, you compare it to the normal gene, you see is there any mutation in the P53 gene or the retinoblastoma gene. So if there is any mutation is there in the P53 oncosuppressor gene or the retinoblastoma gene, we can predict that this person in future he may get this cancer. That means he is an high risk person. So this PCR technique helps in identification of mutations in oncosuppressor genes such as P53 or retinoblastoma gene, can help to identify individuals who are at high risk for the cancer. Now already have told you in case of reverse transcriptase PCR. So because in PCR we detect only DNA, isn't it? But we have RNA, we have viruses where RNA is the genome, isn't it? So RNA is the genetic material. So a very good example is the HIV virus and our recent coronavirus. Both are RNA viruses. The genome is RNA, not DNA. So then how to amplify these genetic material? With the help of reverse transcriptase, you reverse transcript RNA into complementary DNA. Now you got the complementary DNA to multiply by using the PCR technique. But so in case in what we do is so in the reverse transcriptase PCR or RT-PCR, instead of top DNA polymerase, the top DNA polymerase just it catalyze the polymerization and synthesis of a new strand of DNA. So in reverse transcriptase, we need an additional enzyme that is a reverse transcriptase. So they say that the polymerase from the thermophilus. So the DNA polymerase from the thermophilus, it has both DNA polymerase activity as well as the reverse transcriptase activity, and it is also thermostable. It can withstand up to 95 degrees centigrade. So at 95 degrees centigrade, it shows both reverse transcriptase activity as well as the DNA polymerase activity. So instead of using top DNA polymerase, we use here it better to use the this TTH, thermophilus DNA polymerase at 95 degree. It catalyzes both reverse transcription as well as the polymerization. So some mRNA is copied too. So here the RNAs are reverse transcribed into complementary DNA and followed by, so these complementary DNA are later amplified by using the PCR technique. So in ordinary PCR, DNA is detected, isn't it? Usually DNA is detected, that is whether it is presence or absence. And usually the DNA can be from a living or the non-living organ. But in case of reverse PCR, reverse transcriptase PCR in RT-PCR, usually mRNA can be detected because mRNA is, here also DNA is only amplified, but mRNA is reverse transcribed into complementary DNA and later it is multiplied. So that, but mRNA comes from only from the living organ, isn't it? Now here in reverse transcriptase PCR, this chart shows that, this graph shows that, so during the amplification of DNA, when the procedure is going on, when the process is going on, we can detect as well as we can quantitate the DNA present. Okay, so here they have shown the different dilutions. They are using here the fluorescent and here the number of PCR cycles. So at high concentration, when so RNA dilution series, so they have shown here different dilutions. So at high concentration, the RNA is detected very early. See here at the 15th cycle only, concentration has started to rise, and RNA concentration is just 10 nanogram. So it started to rise at 20 cycles, and RNA with only 1 nanogram, it has 25 cycles it has started, and 0.1 like that, and 0.02. So 0.01 nanogram concentration, it started to detect it at 30th cycle. So it depends. So by using different concentration, it is possible to quantitate also. That is the thing what I am going to tell. So in reverse transcriptase in RT-PCR, not only you can detect the presence or absence of the DNA or RNA, it is possible to quantitate also. So by quantitating, if the quantity is more, that means the person is more infected, isn't it? So it is possible to predict whether the person is mildly infected or moderately infected or the severely infected. So based on the treatment strategy or the treatment policy differs, isn't it? Not only like for example in HIV virus or hepatitis B virus. Now the present is the coronavirus. So one type of PCR that is called nested PCR. This nested PCR is the only thing is remember nested PCR is we use this nested PCR when you don't have the primers or what the primers. See, primers are also synthesized. They are synthetically synthesized, and if you know the sequence of the DNA of your interest or the target DNA sequence, if you know, then only it is possible to synthesize the primers, because the nucleotide sequence of the primer is complementary to the target DNA, isn't it? So, when your primer nucleotide sequence is when you are doubtful, that is you are not sure, then what we do is we use two sets of primers. So in the first set of primer, here the primers are here. This is the red color. Sorry, this red color indicates target DNA, which has to be amplified. But we have this extra DNA outside, isn't it? So we use two sets of primers. In the first set of in the first cycle, the first set of primer which is complementary to the outside the target DNA sequence. We call it as outer primer, and then the DNA is DNA is multiplied. In the second cycle, what we do is we use the second set of primers, which is complementary to the target DNA. So by doing this, the later the gene of interest is only multiplied. So this will prevent the nested PCR is intended to reduce the contamination in products due to the amplification of the unexpected primer binding to other side, isn't it? So if our primer, when we are not sure about our primers, whether it goes and binds to the target DNA or it may bind to other part of the DNA other than the target sequence, then when we are doubtful, then we use the two sets of primers so that we can avoid the contamination, the unusual amplification of the unwanted DNA. So that is called as nested PCR. So now the PCR, because PCR is included in your syllabus, so and they like to ask question in the annual examination. So they may ask for the 4 marks, short notes. Now it is for 5 marks for you, or maybe for the 2 marks. So it's a very important topic. Read well. It's very simple. Just remember the steps, 3 steps of PCR. What is PCR? What is the use of PCR? Amplification of DNA. What are the 3 steps? So denaturation, annealing, and extension. And what are its applications? So, but it's a very important topic. And now the coronavirus infection, it is detected by PCR techniques. Like this one, they are using RT reverse transcripted PCR, because coronavirus being an RNA virus, it is reverse transcribed into complementary DNA. Later it is multiplied by the PCR, that is thermocycler, and we have the fluorescent probe which can detect if the infection is there, detects the coronavirus RNA, the DNA, complement DNA, and we can say the person is infected or not. And because it is possible to quantitate, we can tell whether the person is mildly, moderately, or severely infected. So this is how the Biorad RT-PCR instrument looks. Okay, do you have any questions? Do you have any questions, please?
No, sir.
Okay, then I hope you enjoyed the class. Now, see, in the coronavirus, if you detect the coronavirus RNA as complementary DNA, that is antigen. So initially, in the initial infection only, we can identify. When you go for rapid antibody test, so antibodies are produced after 14 days or after 21 days. IgM positive means the case is 2 to 3 weeks old. If the IgG is detected, the case is already 3 to 4 weeks old. So there is not initial detection. So by PCR technique, we can say whether the person is infected or not initially in the early stages. So that's why this rapid antibody tests are the used for screening purpose. Okay, you have any doubts then? Okay then. Okay then. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you, sir. Thank you, sir. Bye, sir.
Bye.